There is a moment rehabilitation physicians describe as a quiet turning point. It happens in living rooms all over the world without drama or announcement. It is the moment when a person who has always stood up easily from a chair begins, almost without noticing, to use their arms. They reach for the armrest. They lean forward a little more. Most people attribute this to age. What rehabilitation medicine now understands is that it is something more specific and something reversible. By 70, most adults have already lost between a quarter and a third of the muscle mass they had at 40. What surprises physicians is not the amount. It is what happens to the rate afterward. After 70, the loss accelerates, and the most common response, walking more, does not stop it. Walking is genuinely valuable. This video is not asking you to stop. For cardiovascular health and joint mobility, it remains among the most useful habits a person over 70 can maintain. But walking does not generate the mechanical demand that aging muscle fibers require to stop declining. It preserves what remains imperfectly. It does not rebuild. That distinction is the reason 3 specific movements have become central in rehabilitation programs, endorsed by specialists in Japan, Scandinavia, and increasingly across North America. Each targets a different structural system in the body. Each is safe enough to begin today without equipment, and each does something walking cannot. It produces the precise mechanical signal that tells aging muscle tissue to stop declining and begin recovering. The title of this video makes a claim that deserves a direct response. These movements do not replace walking. They complete it. Walking in a body that is fully adapted to daily walking and no longer receives a meaningful challenge from it can no longer reliably tell aging muscle tissue to stop declining. These movements can. The third movement on this list is the one most people over 70 have never tried. A study published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity followed adults between the ages of 72 and 84, most of them using assistive devices to walk. 8 weeks, one movement. Participants who added it showed lower body strength improvements that, in a significant portion of the group, exceeded 40%. We will come back to the full details at the end. But understanding the first 2 movements first makes the mechanism behind those results considerably clearer. Before we begin, leave a comment below. Tell us your age and where in the world you are watching from. We read every single one. Here are the 3 movements. Movement 1, the chair rise. The quadriceps, the large group of muscles running along the front of each thigh, are not merely responsible for walking. They are responsible for everything that keeps you vertical, standing from the couch without thinking about it, descending stairs without reaching for the railing, recovering your balance in the half second before a stumble becomes something worse. Picture 5 years from now, the stairs to the upper floor of your home, the grocery bags from the car, the moment a grandchild reaches up to be lifted. Whether those moments feel easy or impossible will be decided in large part by what happens to this muscle group between now and then. When quadriceps strength drops past a certain threshold, the consequences move through daily life like a slow current, changing first what you can do, then what you attempt, and eventually what you believe you are still capable of. That last shift is the hardest one to reverse. Here is what makes the chair rise different from walking in a way that matters mechanically. When you walk on flat ground, your quadriceps are working at roughly 15 to 20% of their maximum capacity. That is enough to sustain the motion, but not enough to produce a growth or maintenance signal in the muscle fibers themselves. Your body stopped responding to that level of demand years ago. The chair rise, by contrast, requires your quadriceps to work at 60 to 80% of maximum capacity to lift your body weight from a fully seated position without arm assistance. That is the threshold at which aging muscle tissue begins to respond. To perform it correctly, sit toward the front edge of a firm chair with your feet flat on the floor, hip width apart. Fold your arms across your chest or extend them straight in front of you. The goal is to remove the armrests from the equation entirely. Lean slightly forward from the hips, then press through your heels and stand fully upright. Pause at the top for a full breath, then lower yourself slowly back down. The lowering phase is not a rest. It is where most of the actual strengthening happens. 5 repetitions is a sound starting point. As it becomes comfortable over the following days, move toward 3 sets of 8 to 10, with a minute of rest between sets. One practical note: if standing without arm support feels unsafe at first, that is important information, not a reason to abandon the movement. Begin with minimal fingertip contact on the armrests and reduce it gradually over days as your confidence builds. The goal is to remove the arms from the equation, but the path there should be steady, not abrupt. Movement 2, the standing wall push. Think about the last time you reached for something overhead and felt uncertain, or pushed yourself up from a low seat and noticed your arms doing more of the work than they used to. That is not a small thing. The chest, shoulders, and arms are not a separate system from the rest of your body. They are directly connected to upright stability through the shoulders and upper back. When that structure weakens, posture collapses forward. And a forward collapse posture redistributes weight across the lower body in ways that increase fall risk through a completely different mechanism than leg weakness does. 2 separate problems, both quietly worsening at the same time. Western fitness culture for decades treated strength training for older adults as either unnecessary or dangerous. The concern was falls during exercise, injury from load, blood pressure responses to exertion. Those concerns were not baseless, but they led to a broad recommendation of light activity that in practice left the upper body largely unaddressed. The wall push-up exists in part as a direct answer to that gap. Enough mechanical demand to produce a strengthening response in the chest, shoulders, and triceps with 0 floor involvement and minimal fall risk. Stand facing a wall, roughly arm's length away. Place both hands flat on the wall at shoulder height and shoulder width. Your body should form a straight line from your heels to your head. This is not incidental. The posture you hold during the movement is training your postural muscles at the same time as your pressing muscles. Slowly bend your elbows and bring your chest toward the wall, keeping your body rigid throughout. Pause for a breath when your nose nearly touches, then press steadily back to the start. Begin with 8 to 10 repetitions. As that becomes manageable over the following week, try moving your feet a half step further from the wall. This increases the load without changing the movement pattern. The chair rise and the wall push-up are both resistance movements, but they operate through structurally separate systems. The chair rise loads the lower body through the large muscles of the thigh and hip. The wall push-up loads the upper body through the chest, front of the shoulder, and the backs of the arms. They do not compete for recovery resources the way 2 lower body movements performed on the same day would. This is why they can be paired in the same session without one undermining the other. What neither of them fully addresses, however, is the posterior chain, the network of muscles running up the back of the body from the calves through the hamstrings, the glutes, and into the lower back. That is the system most responsible for the kind of stability that prevents the body from pitching forward, and it is the one most profoundly undertrained in adults over 70. Movement 3 addresses it directly, and it is the one connected to the study results we mentioned at the start. Movement 3, the standing hip hinge. Most people over 70 have never been shown this movement. It does not appear in the standard repertoire of senior fitness classes. It is not a stretch, not a balance drill, and not a cardio exercise. It is a controlled hinge at the hip joint that loads the entire posterior chain, the hamstrings, the glutes, and the stabilizing muscles of the lower back, in a way that no other standing movement available to someone without equipment reliably does. Here is what the study found. Researchers at a rehabilitation institute in Scandinavia recruited 118 adults between the ages of 72 and 84. Every participant had documented lower body weakness and reduced functional mobility. The majority were using canes or walkers at the time of enrollment. The intervention group was asked to perform a version of the standing hip hinge daily for 8 weeks, 3 sets of 10 repetitions, with no other changes to their routine. The control group received standard care, encouragement to stay active, general mobility guidance, no structured resistance movement. The results, published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity, were striking in their specificity. The intervention group increased the strength of the muscles along the back of their legs and hips by an average of 43% over the 8 weeks. Hip extension power, the ability to drive your hips forward when you walk and catch yourself when you stumble, improved by 38%. And among the participants who arrived using assistive devices, a meaningful portion, more than a third, had reduced their dependence on those devices by the study's end. Not eliminated in every case, reduced. Measurably, consistently reduced. What the researchers attributed this to was not simply that the participants exercised. It was that the hip hinge is one of the only movements accessible to someone who has not been training regularly that loads the glutes and hamstrings through their full functional range of motion under meaningful resistance, body weight, without requiring floor contact, specialized equipment, or a high level of baseline fitness to perform safely. To perform it, stand behind a sturdy chair and hold the back of it lightly for balance, not for support. Your feet should be hip-width apart, your knees soft but not deeply bent. From this position, push your hips backward, not downward. The distinction is critical. You are not squatting, you are hinging. Your torso will naturally incline forward as the hips travel back. Allow it. Keep your spine long and your gaze slightly ahead of your feet. You should feel the backs of your thighs begin to load. When your torso has tipped far enough forward that you would be looking at a spot on the floor about 2 feet in front of you, or sooner if you feel a strong pull in the hamstrings, pause, then drive your hips forward and return to standing by squeezing the glutes. That squeeze at the top is not optional. It is where the muscles are working hardest, and it is the part most people skip. Begin with 8 repetitions. 3 sets with 90 seconds of rest between them is a reasonable target within the first 2 weeks. Progress is not measured by adding repetitions indefinitely. It is measured by performing the movement with better control, a deeper hinge, and a more deliberate pause and squeeze at the top. A caution worth stating clearly. If you have a diagnosed disc condition in the lower back, bending forward under your body's weight may require modification. Reduce the depth of the hinge to whatever range feels comfortable in the spine, and speak with your physician or physiotherapist before progressing further. The movement is safe for the vast majority of adults over 70, but your history matters, and that conversation is worth having. Now, let us bring the full picture together. The chair rise rebuilds the muscles along the front of your thighs, the ones that keep you vertical on every staircase, every curb, every uneven surface between where you are and where you are going. The wall push-up restores the upper body structure that holds your posture upright and prevents the cascade of compensation that collapsed shoulders quietly create in the lower body over time. The standing hip hinge loads the muscles along the back of your body, hamstrings, glutes, lower back, the system most responsible for forward propulsion, balance recovery, and the kind of foundational strength that makes every other movement feel more secure. 3 systems, 15 minutes, no equipment and no floor required. Full dosage details, sets, repetitions, and progression guidance for each movement are in the description below this video. If this helped you, share it with someone you think could use it. Starting is the hardest part, and you have already done that. Leave us a comment. Which of these 3 are you starting with? We read everyone, and we will see you in the next video.